That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Easter Sunday, the 8th film directed by Jay Chandrasekhar, which premieres on August 5th, 2022, courtesy of Universal.
What else has the director done?
He's a notable American comedian. He stars as Joaquin's agent in this film, and he's probably best known for the 2 Super Troopers films.
I liked the movie well enough. I laughed a lot. I did think it felt like a notch above like a Medea movie.
A Tyler Perry's Medea movie?
Yeah, the plot's very busy, and it all takes place over the course of like a day. So it does feel like a lot, but I think Joe Coy is very likable. And yeah, there were a lot of laughs. Do you want me to describe the basic story?
Sure.
It's a lot. I don't even know where to begin. Joe Coy plays a stand-up comedian. He has a teenage son. He's divorced from the mother. The mother is like a successful attorney who's married to like a pro hockey player. So they live in like a mansion in the hills. It's made to seem like Joe's doing well for himself. Like he's a working comedian. The opening of the film is a montage of him doing a bunch of dates. And he's also known for doing like a very popular commercial where his tagline is, "Let's get the party started, baby."
Mm-hmm. And he's playing a person named Joe Valencia.
Joe Valencia,
like a version of himself.
Yeah. So 2 things are happening at the beginning of the film. One is that he has auditioned for a pilot, like a TV show pilot. And it seems like the casting agent is interested in him, but they want him to do the character with a Filipino accent, not his natural speaking voice. And he doesn't want to do that. So he and his agent are trying to work through that. And then Joe's mom wants him to visit home for Easter Sunday. He lives in LA. They live in Daly City, which is like the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. So he decides to drag his son up there. Junior. The son's disconnected from his Filipino heritage. Joe says he's half Filipino, and then the wife is not Filipino. So then the boy would be like a quarter Filipino. He seems a little estranged from the family and like the culture. Mm-hmm. But they get up there, and of course there has to be like a conflict. There are actually 2. The first one is that Joe's mom is not speaking to his aunt. So the family expects Joe in one day to bring the family together. And the other conflict is Joe has a cousin named Eugene, mm-hmm. who he gave $20,000 to invest in a food truck. And Joe hasn't seen this food truck until he goes back home. And Eugene bought a truck, but it's not for food. He calls it a hype truck. And Eugene thinks that when people leave the club at 2 a.m., what they want is not greasy food. They want high-end accessories, like Balenciaga shoelaces and Louis Vuitton belts. So, of course, a stupid business decision. But what's even worse is that Eugene acquired all of these luxury accessories, $40,000 worth, from this local gangster. We're supposed to think this person is dangerous, named Dev Deluxe. And Dev Deluxe wants his money. Mm-hmm. And he tells Joe and Eugene, if I don't get my money tonight, it's curtains for all of you. So the bulk of the film is Eugene and Joe running around trying to figure out how to get this 40 G's. And then there's the side plot of like the son meeting this other Filipino girl his age who works like in the mall or something. Mm-hmm. And his like budding romance with her. But everything culminates with Eugene we find out Dev Deluxe stole Manny Pacquiao's boxing gloves from some championship fight. And Eugene stole them from Dev because he believes only a Filipino should have these gloves. But now that they need 40 G's, Eugene wants to sell the gloves. And they find a buyer. That buyer is Diamond Phillips.
Playing himself.
Mm-hmm. And he explains that he is half Filipino. So he wants to buy the gloves because he's going to be playing Manny Pacquiao in like his upcoming biopic. But at the last minute, Dev Deluxe shows up at the family house with all of his thugs and says, like, I want my money right now and my gloves. I know you have them. I'm going to kill everyone. Joe gets the upper hand on Dev, knocks him out with the boxing gloves. another side character is Tiffany Haddish playing a police officer.
Named Vanessa.
Which we can get into her character. The police have been called. She shows up, arrests Dev, and then Joe passes out. But it's important to know that that night, Joe was scheduled to fly back to LA to meet with the casting agent to do like a second audition.
At a gathering at his agent's house, yeah.
And they called him to see like, where are you? But he was detained because of this whole Dev Deluxe thing. So they call him on FaceTime and he picks it up, but then he forgets to hang up. So the agent and the casting person hear the entire sort of scuffle between he and Dev Deluxe and the family arguing. So at the end of the film, after Dev Deluxe gets arrested, Joe passes out from like stress or something. He wakes up in the hospital and the casting person calls him and says, you know, we're not going to offer you that role in the pilot you auditioned for, but we want to offer you your own show, the Joe Valencia show, starring, and it's going to be all about your family. So the final scene is Joe on set with his family, the end. What did you think of this movie?
It is better than I was expecting, but it also is terribly written. Like, it's so ridiculous and so familiar, and I think our immediate response afterwards was that it feels like something that you would have seen in the 90s, except that as we also talked about at length, that there's not this kind of representation for this culture, so feels like it's behind the times a little bit.
Yeah, and you know, unfortunately, diversity and representation in Hollywood is lacking, especially for some groups more than others. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that there is this, you know, story. But yeah, it does feel a little like 20 years ago. The story itself is just ridiculous. Like, there's so much happening. Again, I did laugh a lot.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people that I like in it. I think Tiffany Haddish is well served. Although it immediately made me think, like, God, she gets cast as a cop a lot. She's an undercover cop in Keanu. She's a cop in The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which this film, the Nick Cage film, that this film really reminds me of. The kind of a lesser version of that film, though. Yes, and Diamond Phillips, of course, is nice to see. And I really liked Eugene Cordero as his cousin, Eugene. Oh, and
although
his mother.
I had problems with the cousin. We can start there because the cousin... This character lives, you know, in Daly City with the rest of the family, and he's become very close to Joe's mom, his aunt. Mm-hmm. So everyone thinks he's a good boy. He is a very nice man. He's very respectful and very helpful. Like, he's very genuine. So I'm a little confused why he would be so reckless with the money his cousin entrusted him in. And also, not only did he take all of these accessories and not pay for them, but he also stole something. So I'm a little...
The characterizations are off because the script is ridiculous and silly, so I don't think any of that matches, but I thought he was kind of a sweet screen presence. And I thought Tia Carrere looked good, and I did enjoy seeing her as his auntie Teresa, who's not talking to his mother. Susan, played by Lydia Gaston. I enjoyed both of those ladies, even though they're, you know, a bit cliched, but they felt also very familiar.
Like in the beginning when Joe's on the audition, it's a little stressful because he's supposed to also be at like a parent-teacher conference for his son. And the son has already said, I need you to be there. You never show up for me. I need you to smooth things over with my teacher. You're really good at that. I need you to show up. But Joe's at the audition. It's running late. He's upset because they want him to do the Filipino accent. And I thought a funny line was that he says, like, I'm half Filipino. And the casting person's like, well, can you at least do like a half Filipino accent? And he's like, that is my accent.
That is it. Yeah.
I thought that was funny. But then, of course, doesn't make it to his son's parent-teacher conference. I thought the film did a really good job of showing the awkwardness of visiting family when you're not a part of that bubble. Because, like, I have a very large family and I'm not a part of their bubble. Nowadays, we're all older, so everyone's kind of doing their own thing. But, you know, 20 years ago, when they were all, like, living near each other and I was living far away, and then always, you know, when I would visit home, I thought the film did a really good job of showing how awkward it is for the teenage son to be around this family.
Well, also because he's not completely of that culture either.
Right. Which, so I related to that. I did think the film, you know, knowing that the person who made this film has made 7 other films, I thought that there were some, like, green screen lighting editing issues that I assumed were because it's like a first time filmmaker.
No, budgetary constraints.
But I guess it's just budget. Okay, there's a scene where, because it's Easter Sunday. Another thought I had too is I'm assuming that this film was intended to be released probably around Easter, but then that didn't happen. So I will say it does catch your attention, like the movie poster, because it's like, oh, Easter Sunday in July, okay, or August. But there's a scene where they're in church for Easter, and the preacher is this black man, and he is mad. He's mad because he gave a demo tape to Joe to give to his Hollywood connections.
With Christian rock.
Something. And Joe's like, I don't deal with music people. I'm a comedian. And the preacher is real mad. And at a point, he calls Joe out like, oh, you think you can do better than me? Why don't you get up here and give a sermon? And Joe does get up there. And I think, Joe Coy is funny. And he has a lot of personality. It did feel silly and ridiculous, but it was enjoyable enough.
Yeah, it doesn't fall apart at the seams considering how ridiculous it seems. Again, kind of like that Nick Cage movie. If you go along with it, it's just fine.
The Nick Cage movie is better than this.
Yes, but there are a lot of people. Jimmy O Yang is in this.
I thought the agent, who's played by the director, I thought he was really funny because his little character thing is that whenever he wants to get off the phone, he pretends that he's like gonna lose his connection.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought that
driving through Mulholland.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. Okay, the teenage girl who the son starts having a thing for. Her name is Tala. I thought that girl looked like Regina Hall.
Oh, she's pretty. She's cute.
She's pretty, but yeah, every time I saw her, I thought that. There's another scene where, because Eugene and Joe are trying to figure out who they can sell the glove to, so they go see, what's his name? Steven, who's the guy you just named?
Jimmy O Yang.
Jimmy O Yang. They go see him, and Jimmy's like, well, I can get you someone who'll buy him, but you have to do a favor for me. So he wants Joe to film a commercial for his clothing store. So there's a little scene of Joe filming that commercial. I thought that was funny. Tiffany Haddish, she's only on screen twice, I think. I thought she was very funny.
She was well utilized in this, yes.
Probably another problem I had is the character playing, or the guy playing Dev Deluxe, that character in general is just not scary.
No, it's hokey, and I feel like they're leaning heavily into that. You're not supposed to take it seriously, but which is so ridiculous because like they're literally holding his family hostage,
right?
And then these executives are somehow staying on the phone listening to all of that and don't call the authorities. Somebody called the authorities. We don't know if it's them. Tiffany Haddish seems to be working an extra long shift that day. It just stretches belief, of course, but
I did think another good scene was the son sort of has a temper tantrum at dinner because he sees that his dad has booked a flight to go back to LA that night to finish his audition, and the son gets really mad and like leaves, and the girl Tala tells him like, hey, around here we don't talk to our parents like that, and then she goes and gets his ass together and basically talks to him about perspective and how like at least you have a dad who cares about you and you're trying to work, like, or he's trying to work to provide for you to send you to college. So I thought that was a good scene.
Which is really kind of the overwhelming motif of the film, is about perspective.
Yeah, that's all I have, I guess. I did enjoy it. I did laugh. I do think it feels a little delayed, but that's, unfortunately, I think that's a lot of filmmakers who aren't selling like mainstream characters, and so it's just a lot of different groups are behind in representation. So this feels like,
well, and trying to seriously tackle like the expectation that he would have to do this hokey accent that's demeaning to him,
and I'm also sure there's a lot of pressure for him to like this movie. He needed to represent his Filipino culture and also be funny, and I'm sure there was a lot of pressure to do a lot of things, but it was enjoyable enough. I'm sure people will love it. I would recommend watching it for like a cute little laugh. I
mean, there's no reference to Manny Pacquiao's extreme homophobia, but
what would you give this movie?
2.5.
I would give it 2.5 as well. Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.